Anyone on YouTube, the only ones that end up losing are the ones that stop, pretty much. Like, everyone gathers an audience eventually. It is completely a war of attrition and how long you last.
I mean, there's kind of a two-pronged question here, which is going to be like content system. You got 30 days, brand new company, doesn't know what it's doing. What's your plan? Number one. Number two, at what point, in your view, should you bring in production?
I'd say quality and polish has actually become more important. There are people creating incredible documentaries and full-length short films and all this kind of stuff because YouTube now owns the living room, essentially. It's now the dominant app. So quality has become more important.
You really need to have a clear landing page, a very clear offer if you're going to do something like that. Otherwise, I would argue it should just be for awareness.
We're a leading organic creative group. So we are specifically specialists in how many views, how many clicks, how many leads can we get you for free.
What do you think is missing in marketing today?
Long-term strategy and taking new platform seriously. These are my two.
Okay.
At the moment.
Hello, my friends. I hope you're well. Hope you had a good day, evening, or night. Today we're back with James in his space, of course, to capture what's missing in marketing today. But before we begin, James, before we get into it, I'm sure this could be a wonderful conversation. What do you think is missing in marketing today?
Woohoo! Long-term strategy and taking new platform seriously. These are my two.
Okay.
At the moment.
What does that mean in actual terms for people listening?
So practicality speaking, every probably like 3 months or so, every quarter, you need to be looking at what is on the horizon, pretty much, in terms of new platforms and everything else. So for me, newest contenders to take seriously are things like Substack. Massive. Just got an account on there. And I think there's genuine organic reach to be had. And I think brands don't reevaluate how much should be in their stack enough, depending on how big they are. When brands get to a certain size, the amount of governance that gets in their way is a pain. And I know any senior marketer is going to know this pain of like, we should be doing this. Okay, well, it has to pass through procurement and this and this and this and security. So it's like, it can really get in their way. However, the smaller, medium-sized businesses that may not have that, they can take a quarterly view on what they need to bring into their stack and experiment. So I think a lot of brands see it as damaging if they try something new and then they drop it if it's not effective.
Yeah.
You know, no one's going to care. No one's going to know. There's so much sea of noise that it doesn't matter if you experiment with a new platform. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't work quite well. So what? Just move on to something else. And then that plays into the fact that you need to take a long-term view. So there's a short-term experimentation, but if you're going to take something like a YouTube seriously, strap in for 3 to 5. Realistically, like genuinely.
I think sometimes when we do marketing, like I've been thinking about this over the Christmas break, and it's like a lot of clients have said it to me in the past. It's like, what's the return on investment short term? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, in most cases, if we're having that conversation, you shouldn't be marketing. In 95% of cases, right? And I think as we look to the new year, I think our people, I guess there's two camps, right? A, I know I need to create demand, I need to create demand for the future. Or B, I'm looking maybe to cut costs because things are getting quieter, etc., like economic challenge, da, 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 da. What would you say when it comes to, like, say, something like Substack? Mm-hmm. Would you personally recommend people lean in?
Yeah, it depends on the brand. So I've been looking, obviously, I'm from a B2B perspective, so just reintroduce myself to the crowd. I run a creative group called the Straw Hat Group that houses a podcast studio, a social media agency, and a marketing consultancy in one group, so you can get everything you need in one place. The whole purpose of that now is I need to take a long-term view of where something like me should be, because it's a bit of an oddball. So platforms like Instagram and Facebook are so heavily oversaturated at the moment, it's quite hard to get educational content to be seen unless you take a wacky approach to it or a very stylized approach to it. So this is why on Instagram, for instance, the cinematographers and the photographers are killing it right now if they can get the balance between video and photos right, because of how engaging their content can be. Yep. However, if you are a law firm who likes to take this a little bit more seriously, much to your detriment, then you're going to struggle maybe on Instagram these days. Whereas something like Substack is a green territory for you to really double down on some really thoughtful, cerebral stuff. And people are on a different mindset on there. So from that perspective, that's why I'm kind of obsessed with Substack at the moment and why people should take that seriously. And then just in terms of looking at the balance between short-term goals and long-term goals, when I start a relationship with any client, I make sure it's very, very clear that, like, our service, we're a leading organic creative group. So we are specifically specialists in how many views, how many clicks, how many leads can we get you for free, right? Yeah. If you need short-term immediate, there's a separate partner and service we use for that. So it's very much like, okay, we need to really redefine in 2026 the ideas of what people have as marketing. Digital sales, I think, needs to become a term we use more often. So whether it's Meta ads, Google ads, TikTok ads, whatever, that is digital sales to me. You know, if you're doing a specific ad campaign for a specific goal for leads for a particular service, that's digital sales, right? That's short-term digital sales over here. And then everything else, organic marketing, organic brand building, that's actually marketing. Get people to give a shit about what you make and do and serve. And then over here is the outlet to buy it.
Yeah.
So as long as we have that distinction in our brains, and I'm very upfront with clients, like to bring the agency side for us, for instance, is like, okay, instead of bringing on one social media manager, for a similar cost, you bring us on and we can do it all with more experience, more kit and more strategy. That's the selling point. And if you're not in a position where you can bring on a social media manager, you're not in a position to work with us. Yeah. So that's how I'm phrasing it, and just trying to help someone as much as possible when I'm in the room or the call with them anyway, just see where they're at, because that goodwill usually passes on.
I think there's 2 points that I'll add to that. Number one is around actually when you have a platform like Substack, and it's not new, but I think it's less discovered. Yeah, because
it started very political, science and educational, and I think now it's expanding more and more. Yeah, it does have some business elements in there, but like it's not often, it's like blue sky for me, because last time we had on the conversation I was talking a lot about blue sky. Only things become new when they actually become used enough to be taken seriously. Yeah, because apps do pop up. If we remember things like Lemonade, that was like the kind of pairing from TikTok side of like an Instagram Pinterest clone. That popped up and then slowly died off. It didn't really make it to the UK market as well as it is.
I think there's a balance, right? It's a seesaw, isn't it? Between you need to be, I guess, early enough on a platform to be able to have that, I guess, arbitrage in there's not enough content being created for X platform, and this could be Substack. In this kind of thing is Substack. Yeah. In other cases, it's been Blue Sky. In other cases, it's been TikTok early, etc. Yeah. But then you also need to have, okay, how many viewers potentially are there? We've referred to Gary Vaynerchuk a lot. He would say you should be on all of them from the beginning, because then you stack your odds in your favor, because the one that pops off, you've been there for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months. And even if it does die, his argument would be you're actually becoming better as a creator through the process of being dominant on those platforms.
And I think people underestimate the fact that Gary Vee is talking directly to some of the biggest companies in the world when he says this, and to decision makers that have the authority to make those quick time experiments. Whereas a lot of people don't feel like they're able to talk to those people.
And also, I guess
that's why he's so brazen with it, and he can just say, which it is true to a certain degree, because you also this founder or CEO that might get inspired by a message from Gary brings that down like a hammer on his marketing team, and his marketing team go, we barely got the resource to keep up with what we're doing, because organic social is, lack of a better phrase, a bit of a bitch in terms of resource. Like that, from how much videos become more important to the level of graphic design you might need to be doing to be actually interesting, it's almost impossible for usually the underinvested social team to add new platforms on all the time, which is why people like us exist. So yes, I agree with him, but I like to just keep an eye on things until I was like, okay, I think that's viable, because the UK is an awfully skeptical market, I've noticed, especially with new platforms.
I think that I guess the thing to be aware of when it comes with that, though, is like when you're looking at that size, arguably they have more resource to be able to funnel into the experiment regardless of what goes wrong, because their cash burn or their pot of cash is going to be larger, in turn means they can do it for longer and they can sort of experiment, and even if it doesn't work, the world doesn't end. You know what I mean?
Experimental budget, like that's what it's for. And again, Gary has Vayner people, that is a direct sell for his service to go, here's all these great ideas. Oh, you don't have the resource to implement.
Oh, that's convenient. Yeah.
Who has two thumbs that can help you with that? This guy. So that's why he does it, but it's still 100% true. But that is why our job is to watch these platforms like a hawk until they're really viable and they're a right fit for a right client. But this can also happen within a certain platform. So for instance, we take YouTube right now. Obviously, YouTube was the same game for ages. Then Shorts arrived, changed the game. But now things like, I'm seeing more posts from the community tab than I've ever seen before. And I keep seeing image carousels via YouTube. Now, you don't unlock that feature until you've hit a certain milestone on YouTube. I can't remember what it is. But you have to put in the work to unlock that feature to then get those organic views. So actually, you need to look at the features within the platforms you already have. Are you over-indexing or under-indexing on certain things? And are you running a strategy from like 2020, which a lot of people, especially on Instagram, still are?
I guess the question that some people would be asking, because a lot of people, as you may know, who listen to this are solo entrepreneurs, smaller teams. They don't have massive resource to chuck at Substack, to chuck at maybe Meta, etc. I mean, quickly on ads, like something that I find working really well right now is taking, we sort of touched on this already last episode, but I think to reiterate it, I think it's important to take the content that already works organically and then amplify it.
100.
Rather than let's just create a piece of content and chuck it on an ad. Because I think, I mean, I guess what is your view if someone is looking to allocate a little bit of spend on ads? Maybe it's just awareness, maybe it's lead target, etc. But how should they go about actually finding that creative? Because a lot of the work we're potentially doing this year or looking to do is, let's create a specific video that does a specific job, right? Most of which could be under a paid channel, right? But how do we, as a generic, because you can't move anything unless you've got data. So what would you say when you were looking at a client or talking to a client or talking to the people listening, how would you say someone should tackle, let's get our teeth into maybe a little bit of paid or target a little bit of organic? Like what level of experimentation should be really following?
A minimum of a month experimentation with a smaller tester budget of what is your proper budget. So say if you've got $1,000 to spend for the month, I'm taking 200 of that and I'm going to be testing like 5 to 10 different ad creatives against each other. That can be finding a piece of organic social that's along the same lines as the campaign you want us to run. Let's say it's a reel of you talking about something specific. Okay, cool. I'm going to run that as my control group A. B, take that, tweak it, maybe with like visual CTAs on the actual video. B. C, add in a bunch of B-roll that's more familiar, more engaging. Right, now I have 3 variants of that one video that I know is performing fairly okay. Now can I take the transcript of that information I talked about and turn it into visual carousels? That is number 1. So we test the photos against each other. And then can you actually get maybe some kind of quote creative alongside photos? So like you've ever seen like a picture of someone with a quote underneath, swipe a different picture, swipe another quote, for instance. So you can try that against each other. Just with that, a little brainstorm alone, there's 5 different ad creatives there to run against each other, see what works with that 200, 2-week period minimum, see what works. They've just done a major algorithmic change to the Meta backend anyway, so it's a lot smarter than it used to be. You're not going to have to mess around with manual bidding or anything. It's just about selecting the right thing that you want, and then making sure that, because that test is, obviously the creative is one thing, getting the clicks is one thing, but most of the time companies underestimate a converting page. Like the website part if is the most important part, really, because a lot of the time even shitty ads get clicks because sometimes it can be by accident. But oftentimes if that website doesn't look good enough, if the social proof isn't there, if it doesn't feel trustworthy, if you're not slick enough, if it loads too slow, game enders. And you've got to find out, using that tester budget, 1, which creatives work okay, and 2, which of these actual things could it be on the website? And it's a process of elimination. So you have to go through and see what works.
No, I think that's true. I mean, I guess the question would come, and what I do is personally, as you know, like as we were discussing while I was setting up, like I look at what has performed in the last 30 days, and then let's amplify that, right? Unless there's a strategic objective or there's something specifically there that I'm like, I want to amplify this because I know if someone sees it, they're more likely to buy from me in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
I guess the overall question, and something that I'm interested in for me personally, has been seeing how my carousels or my image posts have overperformed as a solo creator who is someone who's very video dominant. I think for me there's kind of 3 things. Like 1, you need to build habits around like what you're going to create consistently, but then number 2, then be willing to experiment on organic social where it costs you nothing, and then follow the data rather than follow the hunch when it comes to paid, right? And I guess, I don't know, I've been doing a lot of like thoughts around paid strategies as a whole, but I think for me at the moment, and I'd be interested in your review, that's why I'm asking it, but like the retargeting reach and the getting the leads through the ads, I think is actually maybe an underrepresented part of paid. And I think you really need to have a clear landing page, a very clear offer, if you're going to do something like that. Otherwise, I would argue it should just be for awareness, right? Longer term tail. Let's bring more people into the top of the quote unquote traditional funnel to get more people to know you exist.
Do
you think
from a B2B? Yes.
Do you think, because a lot of the audience, as you may know, is like B2B, so like from a B2B point of view, is that the arbitrage? Is that the thing we should potentially be spending ad money on when we can afford to do so? Because it builds that pipeline further, bringing more people in the top end rather than let's just look transactionally. It's like, say, I'm always very cautious when it comes to doing paid ads for like just transactional sales.
Yeah, because
I think it goes downwind of or downstream of everything you do marketing, right?
Yeah, exactly. B2C standards are often applied to B2B marketing teams. And I know they know this pain because the immediacy of what they are asked to get is always applied to what is usually a 6 to 12 month sales cycle for most B2B companies. And it is strange, but it's just mostly an education thing. So if you brought in your senior leadership and your sales team and it just did a quick 30-minute to an hour sesh on exactly what the marketing is set up to do is to generate demand for these guys to scoop up when it's ready, right? Because people do not buy, especially like things that could be a minimum year, 6-month contracts, right? Sometimes 2-year contracts. They don't buy that from an IG ad. They don't buy that from a LinkedIn ad straight away. There's going to be, the funnel exists for a reason. And I think we all need to recalculate how exactly we allocate value based on those leads. So that's step one, mindset shift. Step two is looking at how do you just take this content? How can I help people as much as possible with what I'm making here? Like from an organic perspective. And again, going back to what you should test in terms of format, that lineup I talked about earlier with the 5 different types of ad creative based on what's working, tweak what's working, go balls to wall, see what happens, an image version of that, right? That is all cold. That is all just like completely new people. They've never met you before. We're trying to get some awareness into the funnel. I think the data capture part should be really important. So B2B brands, most of them do have a newsletter. If they don't have one, they should. Even I've been ignoring that. I'm going to be doing that this year, right? So in my head, an email captured and someone into your ecosystem is just as valuable as a direct call. Because client product fit might not be there for the person who's booked in for your call. We've had many a call with people that's like, actually you probably need this, you probably need that. So data capture and refocusing how we do things like lead magnets. Again, you might have seen a trend where people go, oh, here's 5 tips to do this, whatever. By the way, I have a whole guide to do this. Just comment guide down there and I'll send it to you, right? That should be the new meta for B2B advertising, both organic and paid, because you can just amplify that. So think about how you're creating lead magnets, think about how you're doing data capture, and for your senior leadership and sales teams, they need to re-educate themselves, or you need to educate them so they're not applying e-commerce standards to B2B paid. Because that's what's really, that's why marketing sales always bump heads. Sales think it's automatic because you can just spend $1 bajillion and then hear all the people. That's just not how it works. Because trust is built over time.
I was going to say, I mean, especially in an AI world, a lot of the conversations I'm having right now is like the only reason why I'm having those conversations is because they trust me, and that wouldn't exist in a fully digitized, fully AI, like question mark. I guess like just picking your brain, because I know there's going to be some people who are asking about it, about lead gen. What is it? Make a PDF, send it to people. Is it, here's a video? It's like what? When we say
formats may vary. You can do it in any way now. So you could make and host your own course, right? You could create a PDF downloadable. You can make an exclusive 4-hour, video tutorial on something that's kept behind an info wall. You can give away whatever the hell you want, but it's whether it's enticing enough or whether they trust you enough. So this is why the overall strategy of how organic and paid play together are almost just the same as how marketing and sales need to align with each other. So, the sales team are there to scoop up everything once they're ready, because no one buys stuff in B2B if they are not ready. You can't, this isn't like a used car salesman conning you into something, which I still think is a stereotype. It just doesn't happen. At least in the UK market. We're far more careful, we're far more skeptical.
I don't think it happens at all. I think people, like, this is kind of why I push back on the whole objection handling thing, to an extent. Yes, there is value in doing it, sure. But actually, in a nutshell, if someone doesn't want to buy it, they don't want to buy it.
Yeah, I've already bought before I've talked to the salesperson. Your only job for me, if I'm already in a sales call with you, is just don't piss me off. There you go.
Just don't get it wrong.
Because all the work is done for me beforehand. I'm that type of shopper. There might be someone that's coming into it completely cold. So this depends on if you're resource excess. So you've got a company that's got some money to spend, and they're willing to experiment and they don't much care, and you've got a decision maker that first time, you can align those stars and get lucky.
Yep.
But that's going to be your 1 in 100.
Yeah.
The other 99 are going to scout you out, check you out, see everything beforehand, and then engage when they're ready to actually have a conversation about what it looked like. Even if that conversation is cool, I like what this is happening, but it's going to happen in Q3 of this year.
Yeah.
So you're going to be waiting that long. So this is the type of game we're in. So again, mindset is super important, and making sure that if you just have done nothing but paid and ignored your organic, you're kind of cooked, because those two need to work in perfect harmony for a true sales funnel to work properly.
I agree. And I mean, just building off what we initially discussed when you were talking about what was technically missing, I guess where's then the future when you implement that, right? So you've got the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, let's stay consistent on the channels we know work? Because I think traditionally, especially as marketers, right, like maybe it's coming to the end of the year and it's like we've kind of done our sales targets for Christmas and etc. So now we're pulling back on spend, etc. And or things are maybe harder for a business. Mm-hmm. Like I think a lot of people are maybe throwing around the idea of should they spend, should they not spend? And that's a commonality across January. That's a commonality in when, I hate using the term, but when things are harder, right? I think there's always stuff going on. I think that's why you need to consider it. But I personally see it in two camps. I see ones that will grow through that by continuing to spend and continuing to adapt and keep things moving forward and keep things that they know work, either midterm or long term. But then if you are in a camp, and I watched it specifically in COVID, right, and I'm sure you did as well, around when people stop, they then lose their momentum, they then lose the top of mind, and then everything, and then their entire quote-unquote system starts to fail, right? And maybe they had a bit of residual, so then it doesn't really feel it, etc. But like, what would you say to people right now who are maybe on the fence about spending, right? And this isn't necessarily directed to me or you, but in general, right? They're looking at, okay, should we cut marketing? Because traditionally, marketing is the first thing you cut, which I always think is a bit backwards. But, what would you say to those people who are maybe on the fence about spending right now?
The thing is, I like to phrase it as, what have you got to comfortably spend? Yep. If you're about to spend money that's going to completely mess up your entire business model, don't do it, basically. This is why we are over-index and wholly focus on organic. Like, how much can we do without having to pay Papa Zuckerberg anything? Like, we don't want to. We don't want to have to pay the LinkedIn gods every time we need to make a sale. Because also, if you think about it, let's say if there's some massive AI bubble pop, right? Who knows after that massive calamity what companies are going to remain standing? Yep. Like Meta's dumped so much money in it that you might find if there is some kind of crazy disaster in AI, Meta may not exist in the way it usually does. Instagram and Facebook, in theory, could go bust one day. And if all your eggs are in that basket and your whole paid funnel relies solely on that, yikes, right? So it's not likely to happen. Like whatever, usually these companies are too big to fail. They'll probably be bailed out like banks or something. But in general, if you've got all your eggs in one basket because you're clinging to whatever has previously worked, eventually that will also run out. Because if you're running an old strategy on the platform which is all yeller, then you're going to run into a wall. You have to constantly adapt. You're not supposed to shoot yourself in the foot and be like, okay, I'm going to immediately dump anything that's working and move on to something. But it's experimenting comfortably without doing yourself in. And there's so many different ways to do that, whether you work with an external force, whether you bring on an apprentice, whatever that happens to be. Sometimes you just need a fresh perspective. Go on a course or a webinar, right? And just see what works or where you can spend.
Or just, I think,
don't pull back spend out of fear. Just experiment with strategy and intent. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's just about mixing up the content, right? Like, and building habits around that content, right? Like, I was aware last year that I create content differently when I'm just talking to my phone than doing something like this, right? And it's not to say that this is better than that or etc. No, they're different and they act in different parts of the funnel. And I would argue that the person who's maybe going to sit here and listen to us for an hour is in a different buying state or a different educational state than someone who's just going to watch my reels, right? And I think I need, and I did a reel this morning talking about the fact that I'm actually allocating time to do solely short form in its own bucket and then long form still. Like, I still think you should be having a YouTube channel. I still think, etc. And it talks about it to an extent. It's about resource, right? Yeah, sure. But actually, in a pinch moment, which is what we're referring to here, I would say leaning into what works and like leaning into that goodwill, but being aware of what needs to happen, I think is the solution in 95% of cases. Because otherwise, you're only screwing yourself longer term, like, yeah, you might save like X amount and you might be fine for maybe another month or two if sales are slower. But also then what happens in, Q2, Q3, Q4 in that respect? I mean, what 3 things have you seen change in the last year? It was about a year ago when we did the first episode.
Yep.
In that time, looking into 2026, what would you say has changed in regards to either the landscape of marketing or like social and organic creative as a whole?
Quick fire. Rise of AI content and how it's been perceived, both negatively, it's pretty much negatively, to be honest. 2, a drop in organic reach, 100%. And 3, the arrival of new platforms. So, or at least platforms becoming mainstream enough to be part of someone's normal stack. So Blue Sky was not a kind of fun thing as an experiment. It stuck around. Substack has stuck around. And the strategies for most platforms have changed since the last time we talked.
Yep.
Not too drastically, but things like Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels just being a hack for instant growth, not a thing. They are now the same level of quality as you have to put the thought in terms of a really well-designed carousel to actually get any reach and hope to be on the explore page. You now have to treat your Reels in the same way. So quality has definitely come into it as a factor as what you can actually put out there. I'd also see, if we go back to the rise of AI content, there's been this interesting counter movement to AI. So I think the last stat I saw was around 70% of images online are AI generated already, which is really crazy. And that could be just like random ads you see, or that can be like stupid things you make with your friends. So there's a massive movement that absolutely hates it. So AI slop has arisen as a term.
Yeah.
I despise it. I think lazy AI should be called out for anyone using it, as well as companies using it. I see a big difference between AI slop and AI assisted content. So if you're using actual tools to help your workflow, that is what it's for, right? But if you're just going around making stupid crap that is just mind melting the internet, stop, don't bother, get out of the way, and your customers will see it that way as well.
But is that, just to jump in, I mean, is that brand damaging?
Yes.
Like now?
Yeah.
Like, so let's say, for example, someone's listening to this and they are maybe like, I'm going to turn myself into a superhero, or I'm going to do that, etc. Like, is that something that we could experiment with, or should we just be like, no, that's just not, we're not even going to touch that?
Cringe. It's cringe.
Because when we last spoke, there was a level, I guess, and we were still kind of early.
We were impressed by the fact it could do it.
AI generated vlogs. Like, I used the example we used then, which was like the Yeti vlog on TikTok. Right?
Yeah, they were a novelty for 2 weeks.
But I don't think it aged very well. No. Is my point.
No.
Right?
Thing is, I have real beef with LinkedIn at the moment. LinkedIn is usually 5 years behind any modern culture, and it acts like 2015 Facebook. And the amount of pure cringe I see on LinkedIn does my head in. Sometimes I feel sick even being on the platform, because I'm just like, you have to adapt to how everyone operates on there.
Yeah.
And it's like a constant fake smile office. It's like, oh, well done, Janet. It was great. And then it's just like, oh, I made myself into a superhero because I'm really good at my service. It's like, it makes me sick, right? So there's just so much boomer activity going on LinkedIn. It makes me violently ill. So there is just it's just a cultural void compared to everything else. And like people, it will catch up. It's just always super late. Always super late. So it does my head in, that place. But yes, it's brand damaging to use AI for random slop. Don't do it. Because also environmental reasons.
Yeah.
Not to sound like a raging lefty, but the amount of water you use on just generating one image is dumb. Like, it's just not sustainable. So that there's that in it as well. But just use it for actual helpful stuff, because it doesn't move your brand forward at all.
Let's flip it the other way then. What's a good use of AI right now?
A good use of AI is when it is implemented as practical tools. So AI agents that can help you do stuff. There's so many marketing tools that use it. So Opus Clip, Riverside FM, so many good already existing software companies are using it and adapting it into workflows to make it super simple. So this whole thing can be taken and put into Riverside or Descript, whole transcript there. Now I can change this into a really good Substack article after we finish having our conversation with minimal work and a few tweaks here and there.
Yeah.
And especially if I've have a Claude account, I've worked on that quite a bit, I can now tweak that with Claude so it sounds a lot more like me. So that is one of the practical outputs of it. If you're just generating cringe images, get in the bin. That's my general take on it. But yeah, it's so many practical uses for it. I guess
does it go in the camp of, and I saw this a lot, and we're filming this early January, so I saw this a lot over the Christmas break, especially like yesterday at the time of filming, where it was like first day working back, and it was like everyone was like Happy New Year, and I'm just looking at that post going, you had nothing to post, did you? You had nothing to say that was actually valuable, right?
Yeah.
Because okay, I get it, sure, good idea, but if you had something valuable to say, surely wouldn't you swap that out and then add on the tag on the end, Happy New Year? Or if you wanted to do a Happy New Year, like, the kind of similar was like in some ways the Happy Christmas, or like those kind of. I mean, guess does it go in that camp when it comes to like, oh look at this cool thing? I remember there was I don't know whether it was a trend, I don't know whether you saw it a lot, but like there was this thing over Christmas which was like everyone was turning themselves into an elf.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and I was just like,
on the shelf,
I was like,
stuff,
what,
or the people that were doing those fake red carpet things where they walk around. Yeah.
But it was just like what I always add and I go whenever I think about creating a piece of content. Maybe it's just me and it's how I think. But what value am I adding, or what educational value or entertainment value or whatever am I adding to the person who's like potentially going to consume this? If there's nothing tangibly, like I can't think of something, it won't be a post.
Yeah, the output is zero, so you might get a couple of likes from the people in the immediate circle, and that's kind of what it's for. I'm a bit of a Grinch when it comes to this, because like I have beef with awareness days. My conspiracy is awareness days in general were made up by social media managers that didn't have anything good to post. Yep. So National Chair Leg Day, all right then. Like, and I kind of treat Christmas and New Year's the same way. Like everyone's jumping on saying Happy New Year. Okay. If you've jumped on and you've done like, here's 20 things that like completely changed how well 2025 went, or how badly it went, and you can adapt to it, actually useful. Yeah. Cool, I'll take that. But most of the time it's just like, wow, what a year. And it's just like everyone's just doing the same thing.
Do people not put it through that filter, do you think? Is that the problem?
No, a lot of people treat their LinkedIn like a personal Facebook, which goes back to the point of I find it a cringe culture 99% of the time. And if you compare it to something like, it treats trends completely differently on LinkedIn and TikTok. So if we treat how TikTok will take something, because it's an audio-based culture, people take the audio of it and often have their own spin on how that trend will turn out.
Yep.
Whereas LinkedIn will just see a trend, elf on the shelf or something, and they all just do the same thing. Because it's the same as when you had the first time on Facebook where people had like flashing banners, or they can make themselves look like a Teletubby, and then everyone was like posting that. Yeah. And it's just like, can you stop being a boomer, please? Like, I can't describe it any other way apart from the fact that essentially it's people coming late to the game, discovering tech, doing it when it's already about a bajillion months late. Yeah. And this could be really important people in companies. It's going to sound quite ageist, but like that. Like the whole of LinkedIn is just poopy, stinky bum bums a lot of the time. But it needs to change.
I guess a naivety or a thing where actually the opportunity then is to educate those people on why that isn't a good idea, right? Yeah. Or why that potentially is brand damaging. As people who do help businesses move forward, and my next question was going to be like, when a business says we need more content, sure you've heard that, sure loads of people have heard that before. What does that actually mean, like tangibly? Like, is it they actually need more content? Is it they need to do some
what
filming?
They're saying is they need more sales, basically, but it's behind the guise of a marketing lens, usually. And just getting views for the sake of views is kind of no point. So it depends on, like, whenever you're trying to boost your views up on a certain platform, it's usually for lead gen or sales. But if we're looking at a long-term brand strategy, if you were to create a YouTube channel, for instance, go back to the example of a law firm, which there aren't very many good UK law channels that could be doing so much to prove their expertise, educate, entertain, inspire people. So, for instance, there is a guy I follow on Instagram. His name is something Jobber. He reviews traffic accidents people send to him on Dashcam, and he points out who is at fault. Right? Yep. How many times could a law firm do that? It could be a dispute in the hallway. They could be react to CCTV fights or whatever, and there's a civil dispute. Whatever you specialise in, you could be doing reaction videos. You could be doing educational videos. You could react to popular culture. The Americans are all over this. Legal Eagle on YouTube is the best example. He does stuff all the time on whether things that the administration might be doing is illegal or whatever or not, right? So there's so much opportunity that lies in front of us and we just choose not to do anything about it and stick to our ways. This is a very UK culture sometimes, because it's like, don't rock the boat, and those who do are always the one that win. So yes, we need to be helpful to people instead of just saying stop being cringe. Most of the time people aren't thinking about their personal brands the same way me and you do.
Yeah.
They'll think about their company brand in that way, and then their personal brand is theirs, and they just think of it like their Facebook or Instagram. So it depends on if they are actually a leader or a founder or a CEO, where it's actually important for them to project certain things via their brand. Because most people isn't, and they won't treat it in the same way.
I guess for me, I've always been eternally grateful for anyone who's willing to give me any amount of time, right? So I take that as a responsibility whenever I do create a piece to say, I'm asking for 2 minutes, I'm asking for 10 minutes, I'm asking for 50, whatever it is. And this is what I expect, I want the change to be, the investment or the, whatever. I want someone who's going to invest that time to get something for that time, right? And I think that's one of the reasons arguably why, like, I guess you could say like why personal branding is the best thing, but it's become a buzzword in the same way like some people have said that podcasting is dead because you're not, Joe Rogan, for example, right? But just quickly on podcasting, as we sit here on a podcast in a podcast studio, is podcasting dead in 26? Should we not? Should we?
No, it's not dead. It's just
but we're not Joe Rogan, we're not Chris Williamson, we're not.
So you want to know the difference between you and Joe Rogan? He had a decade ahead of you. That was it. Anyone on YouTube, the only ones that end up losing are the ones that stop, pretty much. Like everyone gathers an audience eventually. Yeah. It is completely a war of attrition and how long you last. How long you can put up with that valley of despair before one of your videos pops off. Yeah. Because this happens with YouTube, right? You'll be 100 videos in and it'll be video 30 from 8 months ago, which is the one that performs and hooray. And then that boosts up all your other videos. So it's very much a nothing. Holy crap. Like that is how YouTube ends up working. But, it's hard to sell as a business case. If you're internal, for instance, our brand would have a killer YouTube channel. If we did this, this, and this. And like, okay, cool. How much do we have to invest and how long is it going to take? Don't know.
A lot and infinite time.
Yeah, cool. Basically. So I need us to do a thing that could last years, and there's no guarantee you'll get a penny from it. But this is like going back to the AI tools and how you need to look at marketing in general. We've talked about this before, but having some kind of content engine or mainstay series to power a lot of things is what helps make something like a podcast immediately ROI positive. Yep. So again, if we're looking at the split of things I call the waterfall method, you can have a podcast at the top. That's going to produce you short form clips, easy. Take the transcript of it. God's going to give us a nice couple of carousels, actually. Scroll through. If I pop them in the Canva, make some graphic designs. So that's number 3. Oh, cool. I can take the summary of some of the conversations I've had over the past month. That's my monthly newsletter. Packed to the brim because I've interviewed 5 people, 4 people during this month. Excellent. Oh, wait. Now I can translate this to my blog and Substack. So one activity has gone all across this. Plus the fact that if you work with your sales teams, you now take that lead magnets, subjects for webinars that you wouldn't actually have to deliver, because if you've got a sales team that has all of this information that we used AI to go, hey, turn these 4 podcasts into a really informative webinar for our sales team to deliver, you could potentially do that with a couple of tweaks here and there. So with the right system set up, with 0 subscribers and 0 views, you create an ROI positive system because you've created a content ecosystem from day one. That's what we implement for our clients, and that's why it's a multi-pronged approach, and I know you do the same for yours. So yes, you just have to make the system work. And as soon as you explain that once, you're like, oh, I get it. So it's a reframing the conversation, make sure you put a practical business spin on it for those who aren't in the world of social. Because a lot of times people just aren't. And I literally put out a video on this yesterday about how people's preconceived notions of how they feel about certain platforms and social media in general impact how they go about business all the time. Yeah. Like whether it's TikTok or whether it's just social media in general. Like I've talked to so many like senior leaders that are like, oh, these kids today and TikTok. Again, it's like
they're dancing, James.
Yeah, it's just I thought it was just for kids. It's like, okay, it's not. It's not. 55 plus is the fastest growing demographic. I talk about that stuff all the time. It's so incredibly important, and there's different pockets of it because of everything's algorithmic. Yeah. Everything is interest-based. So, yes, as long as you can wrap your head around the fact that as long as you create a media ecosystem for a new world of interest-based media, because it's not the social we knew, then you're going to win in the long term. So find a system that's affordable for you to do, whether it's one video a month or one video a day, and go for it.
Yeah. I guess, as well, like, are you building for short term, mid-term or long term, right? And I think, and then I was going to ask you is like, where does ego sit in this? Because I think that's
every
the main
stage.
I think, to be fair, I think for me and the people I speak to and I speak to consistently, that's the actual undoing of anything good that they could do, to be honest. It sounds horrible, but why either their ego is too like, no, I couldn't possibly do that, or they, in some ways they want to do it, but also I guess in crux that really links down to self-esteem. But like, especially for people who are starting out on video, like we're both very prominent on video, I'd argue. Why are we able to do that versus someone who's maybe got a lot of knowledge but is sat watching this going, A, that's really terrifying, or B, I don't know how to do it, I don't know what, because sometimes there's like a psychological barrier, sometimes there's a technical barrier, or both.
To be honest, everyone's insecurities manifest differently. So my insecurities would manifest if I wasn't doing this, because I'd feel lesser than someone that is. And I've got to eat, right? So it's a case of, back when I first started my agency, I used to repeat this phrase to myself over and over again, is that I will do what others will not to succeed. And it's very hustle grind culture, and it very much was back then. Apologies past me, but like in general, like I was just like, I will get on video, because I was I cannot tell you how petrified I was back then. Because if we put ourselves in the perspective of someone creating a startup, if they've just been in a marketing agency, for instance, which was the case for me, I'd been in like 4 or 5 marketing jobs before that, been in marketing for around 5 years, and then I randomly go, okay, cool, time to start the business. I'd gotten Fiverr, I'd gotten enough clients to get me started, wicked, I'm about to start. And I realised I have no method to make sales, I don't know how to get anyone that wasn't just coming to me on Fiverr. I was cooked, and I was like, okay, time to look into something like LinkedIn. And then I realised, oh my God, I'm only connected to all the professionals I've worked with who knew exactly what my skill sets were at that particular time. And your brain goes right back to when you were sat at that desk as a junior next to that person who knew more than you. And that judgment, it feels like you're like doing a TikTok dance in front of them in the office you used to work in.
How dare you possibly create a video, James?
Yeah, and it's because in your brain you're like, I don't know as much as these guys I'm connected with. I know I don't. And they're not posting videos, so why should I? So it's that was I got that a lot. And that actually really hindered my consistency in the beginning. I feel like I'd be in a very different place content-wise if I actually stayed consistent from the moment I started to where I am now. I'd probably be making money from my YouTube channel as a separate income stream. But learning those things and learning that it was my personal hang-ups, but then I gained a new one. And it was, oh my God, if I don't start doing this stuff, I'm going to be more ashamed of myself because I didn't do it. So, but that is a turning point you get to when you get to it. It is an unteachable lesson. And I think it's less about people's personal egos about I'm better than this or this is beneath me or something. It's much more about, oh my God, what are other people going to think? How do I feel about, I don't feel like I know enough, because imposter syndrome follows you to the highest level. So I think imposter syndrome comes down to it just as much from a founder level. And then from a company level, there's far more that goes into it. So let's say I have a company of 50 people. I want to make sure that I have a superstar in my marketing team, my sales team, like as a go-to. I need to find 2 people out of 50 that are willing to do content for my brand on my behalf, and then set up the actual system in which they could do so. And see if they're up for changing their own personal brand on LinkedIn, see how they feel, and all of the psychology goes into those 2 individuals. It can be a lot. Like, again, this is why I've had to set up the group itself in terms of how I've done it, because there's actually the consultancy part factors in, because I need to work with leaders to realise that they need to change their ways up here to trickle down here. Now I need to find some superstars from here so I can create a YouTube channel that powers the entire brand. So it's like start up here, or actually the problems in the core, and we go from the core outwards and start doing stupid graphs. But essentially there are multifaceted problems when you're trying to do this at a corporate level. And it can be done easily, because usually there are superstars that do it. So LinkedIn personal branding luckily has become more and more important. So when we've worked with like larger finance companies, for instance, we've actually already been able to identify those people already have really good personal brands, and they'd be well up for collaborating with us. So we need to over-index with them as superstars. We need those superstars, we need those advocates. And I think foster any brand that has someone posting good personal brand creative in there right now, reward them anyhow you can. Get them in videos, financial rewards. Like, for instance, we've got content performance rewards and client retainment rewards on our side. So if we keep a client and if we get a viral hit, you guys are going to get money from that. So same way as if you participate in 6 months worth of videos, you're going to get a bonus from that. Like put those things in place because you need those people to be your superstars.
As I say, but is that more of a long-term culture challenge?
Yeah.
Like people maybe, I don't know, is it?
It will take a couple of people, 1 or 2 people to lead the way before others start to feel more confident to do so. Okay. Plus, if they see the benefits, they'll want to get involved.
But is it purely just, I need to look at the finances and I don't want to give a reward or I can't
Everything
give a
I'm
reward?
talking about is for free. As long as you got one of these and an employee that's up for filming, that's all you need. That's what I'm talking about. Even if it is the biggest, you could be like a B2B consultant at the highest level.
Yeah.
Are they doing content that is long form about how a finance firm can modernize themselves in the modern era? They probably haven't. They probably talked about it and time again on a call. Yeah. Have they sat down and made a quick video on it? That's the kind of stuff that they're missing out big time.
But I guess it's I would call it the opportunity cost of not doing it. But I guess for them, it's why should I do that? Why should I spend the time playing devil's advocate? Right? Like, what am I going to benefit? Why am I going to be able to, like, because I've got to invest time, I've got to invest energy, I've got to put myself out there, I've got to break down these boundaries. But what's the gain?
Exactly. Well, this is why I go back to the internal staff have to have an incentive to do or get involved. Yeah. Whether that is obviously career progression, whether that is financial incentive, whether that is, let's say if there's a brand that's actually fairly recognizable but have never really taken a YouTube channel seriously, and you go, okay, employee 1 and employee 2, if you guys are willing to be the main presenter for this YouTube channel, not only will I put like half or all of your hours into being full-time creators for this brand, I will give you a revenue split of when this channel is monetized. Like you could actually do that. But it takes the leaders with that level of foresight and the sign-off potential to do that, to be able to make those changes, and the willingness to bet on internal teams. So that's every case. It's going to be a case-by-case basis, to be completely honest with you. But
because again, I think then the thing that jumps to mind is the key person risk potentially of doing that. Right, because as a founder, you want to be the face necessarily. Sure, you want to have the quote unquote glory or the thing that's representative, but also your key person risk is less because
depends on the type of business you want to run and scale. Because if you want one of those businesses that pays you quietly and you don't really want to be too front and center, then you're going to think about it differently, and you are going to think about putting other people front and center, or making sure your sales and marketing in front and center, because those are the majority of the people that people are interacting with on a daily basis anyway. Yeah. So think about your overall goals. If your plan is to quietly scale and exit without being the face of the brand, cool. If you're a founder-led brand, excellent. You just go front and center. If you're a larger brand that needs to consider what to do, this is why I say start with 1 or 2 people, but in general you want to have a cohort. So the way I look at it is you want to essentially create your own version of the office in your office. Yeah. So you'll have 2, 3, 4, 5 recognizable people. So if someone does swap in and out, it's fine, because you can be honest with that journey and say bye to them and everything else. Look at how group YouTube channels do this. Something like Smosh, Rooster Teeth, IGN, they have a constant switch up of different people that come in and out. Yeah. So the model is completely applicable to any brand. So you could be the biggest law firm in Hampshire, and you can just take the same approach that Smosh on YouTube has done and whack it into your firm as a recurring series of characters that have their own things going on. Yep. And it doesn't actually take much to make that happen. You need a smartphone, a good mic, and an editor. And I know brands that big have that resource. And so that's the thing. It's not even necessarily a risk, because it's your people who know their stuff. Yeah. And it can be done with such low cost if you get it right. But usually it's a strategy thing, because just saying to a brand of a decent size, just use your phone, they won't want to, because they're worried about quality issues and they're worried about how they'll be perceived if everything's done on a smartphone, which is when actually you can then go, well, maybe you should spend a little bit on this. But a comfortable spend, you could do over 1 to 2 years. Yeah. Now then we're talking.
I guess then that naturally brings on to the question, which, I mean, there's kind of a 2-pronged question here, which is going to be like, content system, you got 30 days, brand new company, doesn't know what it's doing. What's your plan? Number 1. Number 2, at what point, in your view, should you bring in production? So production cost, production quality, etc. Because we just talked a lot about you should use your phone. But when should you bring in someone like myself to help you up that quality? When should you come to a studio like this to up that quality, to do something that feels more polished, feels more premium?
I'd say quality and polish has actually become more important. You know, as we've seen the sea of content progress, more like smartphone heavy content is still really prevalent on platforms like TikTok, but I'm seeing other platforms like Facebook and Instagram and other things and YouTube Shorts and things actually move to a higher quality standard, especially on the YouTube side.
Yeah.
YouTube you're going to see massive incremental gains in terms of the quality of creators on there. There are people creating incredible documentaries and full length short films and all this kind of stuff that is because YouTube now owns the living room. Essentially, it's now the dominant app. So quality has become more important. Volume is still more important if you're starting out. So to either answer any of these questions, you'd need to know what industry that client's in. You'd need to know who their ideal target market is. And you'd need to know what the goals of the leaders or the founder is. Because ultimately, if it's like, I'm not really too fussed, I'm probably just we've got a good sales system going, I'm just going to sell and exit later on, cool, don't even worry about that, this isn't for you. Yeah. But if it's someone that I need to scale, I want to double the team in the next 2-3 years or something, like excellent. We need to make sure we get you a real good organic baseline right now that's going to feed and support all the paid activity and everything else. So that's when you build a content system for that person. So if we take the example of someone who's in B2B, it could be, if we go back to a law firm example, because it's constantly on my head these days, we know that their clients are really going to value trust. They're really going to value that the quality actually will play a factor into it, because are you going to trust a lawyer running around on a smartphone? Not 100% sure. It doesn't mean to say that they can't have any personality. So I think people get authenticity mixed up with shoddy, or just handheld quality.
Yep.
Like, you can be just as authentic with nice cameras like these as you can with your smartphone. So don't get it twisted. Let lawyers be themselves. Don't, as strange as it sounds, make sure they don't act as loyally as you think they need to. As you can tell by, if we take an example of politics, anytime any politician sounds like a politician, we all hate it.
Yep.
Anytime Keir Starmer sounds like a lawyer like he used to be, we all hate it. Right, so it's like, oh my God, just act like you normally do, please. We know this is an act. I think a lot of people do take that example. So professional services often suffer from the fact that they're too professional and actually strangleholds themselves.
Yeah.
I see this with accountants as well. That's why the only accountant or lawyers I've ever gone for are the people that I can see act the way they usually would.
Yeah.
And not everyone's going to think like that, but it really does help just to add that, just a little extra, just let them be. Don't over-engineer them.
I think it allows you to be human. Right, because even if you are a boring industry, lawyers, accountants, etc., right, I would say that by you being more human, it then by proxy allows you to non-boringify, if that's a term, what you do. Because you can talk in real terms, right? You can, and especially in the finance space, right? There's been this rise, I think this last year especially, but I imagine it will continue this year around personal finance and there's been a big push towards investing. And I know that's kind of coming from the Treasury in the UK especially, but also it was kind of there already. And they were just like, hey, that's a good idea. But also, I think that's when regulation kind of needs to tweak and change if there is this constant need, and maybe it's a reaction, I don't know, to cost of living and costs going up, right? People are constantly thinking about how do I make more money, how can I use my money better, etc.
Maybe every time you make more, you go back to the baseline you were before.
I mean, maybe that's the reflection, but I guess the key there is actually is it a trend that's going to stay? But also the people who are actually winning in those fields or that field in general are building off your point, which was they're more personal. They're not just, these are the things you should do and this is why it's a good idea and disclaimer. They're actually, hey, this is my story. And I think storytelling as a whole will become more and more prevalent. Yeah. And I think will become more and more. So I think quality increase will be really powerful, and I think good executed storytelling is going to be
and that
important.
also goes for short form as well. People think they can kind of get away with it. Even the clip you choose from a podcast has to tell the best story it can from the moment you do it, and that's going to go from podcasters who know they're talking in a bite to how do I make this a really nice thing that will end on a nice point. I think people will come through it and so on and so forth. So I think you're 100% right on the storytelling part, because if I'm taking an example, go back to the law firm, if their content ecosystem is the center of it is their YouTube channel, and they do reaction videos for civil cases, and they do commentary on what might be changing in terms of policy, but if they start each video with, hello, today is this, we will be covering this, you can be start with a couple of images. The year is 2026. The US has just invaded Venezuela. Was it legal? like, you know, that kind of stuff that builds the narrative, the hook. So in YouTube theory, there's often the title, thumbnail, and the first 10 seconds are the most important part. YouTube is a click and watch platform. We'll chuck it on at the end of the day. Whatever's on your homepage, whoever's going to win the fight is that the one that has your interest nailed down, and the thumbnail title nailed down. But there's something that happens in that 10 seconds and just after it, which is you have to confirm the click and leave another open loop. So that is, okay, we've got your attention, it's fairly good, and now there's you know what you're going to get out of this video. So that's what the first 10 seconds is for. Now we also open another open loop, which is, and also, does it impact this? Or how does it impact you? That's the open loop that you need to create for them to be intrigued on the rest of the video. So it's all very much fishing and storytelling. That is when it might be harder for internal teams to pull this off with that level of storytelling, unless they have someone who is very familiar with YouTube, knows that strategy, because every video is an opportunity.
I think that comes in time, though.
It does,
I don't think you need to go from, we're going to start doing YouTube videos, to here's the perfect opening sequence that means that it's going to get 20 million views, right? And I think the key is start, get the 1%, and then look how you optimize those things, right? Is there a thumbnail? Could you put money into thumbnail designing, or could you specifically put a member of the team who's on that content team? Right, your only job is to create thumbnails, right? Your only job is to like execute on thumbnails, research thumbnails, look at thumbnails, look at title description, etc. Yeah. I guess as a maybe a final point, what would you say to people who, this is what I would call commonality, right? Where someone is on Instagram or they're on Facebook or etc., and they've got kind of plateauing views, right? Maybe on LinkedIn as well. Like maybe they have a couple of outliers, but most of their stuff is like, I know it's roughly going to get 200 views. I know roughly it's going to get 400 views. I know roughly it's whatever their baseline is. Is that game over? Is that we need to go back to the drawing board? Or is that actually just in reality what most have, and actually it does from a business point of view, that's okay?
Yeah. So again, it depends on the goals of the person, the individual, the brand, the company. So that's step one. Step two is looking at your current stack, constantly reevaluating your approach. Probably every month or two is really important. So you should be doing that all the time anyway. But if you know you have some absolute stinkers, they don't go anywhere, then you can swap them out and it's okay. You don't have to chuck out the entire strategy. You can just go, right, I'm going to lift that out and I'm going to put something back in. But I would also caution about chasing the dragon in regards to, I need to be going after viral hits, because really you should be trying to build up a real community, because that's kind of what is happening on the internet at the moment. You know, on YouTube, there's 10 million videos uploaded every day. Every day. Like, you are in that level of saturation, and that's obviously a global statistic, but you know, you can try and get the most viral mega thing ever and compromise on what you actually might believe, how you tend to do the style. You could invest too much of your resource in trying to chase that dragon, or you could either try and improve incrementally what you do in that stack. So if you know there's a series that's actually performed well here and there, that shows potential. That means I can go, right, how do I tweak the storytelling of this particular short, for instance? So I was working with a photographer recently who does lots of Arctic expeditions, and he's working on like a 2019 Instagram strategy, and he's got all these incredible photos, but they're not getting seen because, you know, it's not OG Instagram anymore. It's really annoying. And I was saying to him, I was like, well, what if you took that picture and go, this was a picture I got in 2017 on an Arctic tundra. I was there on a hill just behind, only 30 yards away from a polar bear that could have killed me, right? Then it's like, right. So it's about how you execute that story is then how you're going to get the interest of someone. So you need to have a scout around, see what other successful creators are doing. Yeah. And this is something I'm going to tell to every brand. Try and do less competitor research and do more creator research, please, I beg you. They are the ones that have figured it out. They are the ones that the techniques you need to be adopting and copying. Not necessarily direct copies, but like trying to do the style in which they execute things. Because like you said, storytelling is the most important part, changing the concept of something where you can still show your picture and now you give a whole story behind that. I said the same thing for case studies. Instead of getting a Google review and you have a PNG of your Google review, I go, right, just take this Google review, put it on a piece of card or write on a whiteboard or something and just go, this was a review from Claire of this business. She said it was this, and this working, and it was bloody excellent. And then you give an extra insight into how you got that and maybe how you got that client, because different people might follow you for different things. If it's for me, they're going to want to know how I signed Claire in the first place if they have ambitions to do something similar. Yep. So find out who your audience is and who you're creating things for, because you might look at your stack and go, this is for my ideal customer. This might be your broader, application. This is for someone very specific. This is just so people still know what I do, because you will have those ones like unique conversion content, I call it, which is just podcast studio offering X amount. You need it. It's not going to go viral, but it's just so people know what on earth you do occasionally, and so on and so forth. So have a deeper think about how you execute stories, who it's for, and do chuck in maybe the broader things. Because that photographer, he can talk more about what's happening on climate change. He can talk more about animal facts and all that stuff. And then people can also find out he's a photographer. So that broader sign, that broader content, that might have a broader application has an indicator.
I think it's about having that the byproduct of, I'm talking about this cool story. I'm talking about this thing that happened. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, conveniently, I do the thing, right? What's the byproduct of the thing, right? Yeah. And instead of focusing directly on, like, I'm a photographer, I'm a videographer, I'm a strategic person, I'm a marketer, whatever. Like, that's the thing you sell, sure, but that should be over here, adjacent to the story you're telling. Mm-hmm. Because in the nicest way possible, no one gives a shit until they do, is the point I'm now making or starting to make. Yeah. Because they do until they're so deep into your content that you become the only version, the only person, because they've consumed your content enough to know, like, and trust you in a depth level. But also, when they have a more complicated problem, they're more likely to come to the person that they deep trust rather than just surface level, I saw you did this thing.
And that means for deep trust, you've got to constantly show up, constantly be there, right? So if you want organic sales, leads and views, every founder is a creator and every company is a media company. Yep. Completely change how you think about it, right? And if you can set up those systems, if you can set up a good way to produce that stuff, you are going to win, but you have to win over that long term. Yeah. So whatever's been the thing that's kept your business going and keeping it working, keep that going, while also still having a system that can work alongside it. It's just a slight tweak to how you guys would tend to operate, and you'll make a world of difference.
I'll asterisk this as the final point, but like for me, it's find what works, keep it going. And then adjacent to that, as long as you have the resource to do it, either you're personally going to do it, so it's a time investment, or you have the resource, as in the financial resource, or both, to then continue to do the other experimental stuff, so you can constantly adapt and see what the differences are in what you're doing. And that's, I think, when you rotate your content and you start... I always look at it as, can I have more volume whilst consistently creating the stuff which I know works? Because on the average, when I have an outlier, I can then analyze that outlier more and say, okay, well, why did that one perform? But for those who've really enjoyed this conversation, want to check out the studio, want to check out what you guys are doing, where's best to reach out, James?
Hampshire Podcast Studios, if you guys need to book a session like this, and I'm still building the new Straw Hat Group website, but just check me out on LinkedIn, James Gale, and you'll be able to find all the details, book a call with me if you want to talk strategy, all that lovely stuff. So I'll see y'all there.
Fabulous. And if you were going to talk to yourself 5 to 10 years ago, and you were going to give yourself a piece of advice, what advice would you specifically give?
A lot of stuff I talked about today. Consistency is going to be the obvious one. I let imposter syndrome get in the way too much as I went across, thinking, what would someone think about this? What would someone think about that? But in general, you just have to forget about all that stuff. But it's the consistency part, because my habit is to get very over-invested in my own idea, get super excited, want to put 100% of all my effort into that thing, and then I've realised I've forgotten all the basics over here. A message to myself is to try for once to balance things instead of going whole hog, and that balance comes with consistency.
Fab. And if you did enjoy this episode of What's Missing in Marketing Today, I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you very, very soon. And why not leave me a comment, let you know what you thought. YouTube believes you enjoyed this video. Why not be subscribed if you're new? And I'll see you very, very soon.